National income and economic growth. National income refers to the aggregate value of goods and services. Chapter 3. National income and economic growth. National income refers to the aggregate value of goods and services produced in an economy in a financial year. There are a number of variables of national income that focus on different aspects of the economy. The national income and economic growth are directly related to each other, where economic growth adds to national income in quantitative way. National income, NI, measures the net value of goods and services produced in a country during a financial year, and it also includes NER factor income from abroad, NFIA. National income measures the productive power of an economy in a given period to turn out goods and services for final consumption. In India, national income estimates are related with the financial year, the 1st of April to the 31st of March. According to National Income Committee, 1949, National Income Estimate measures the volume of commodities and services turned out during a given period counted without duplication. Concepts related to national income. The important concepts of national income are discussed below. Gross domestic product, GDP. GDP is the total monetary or market value of all the finished goods and services produced within a country's border in a specific time period. As a broad measure of overall domestic production, it functions as a comprehensive scorecard of a given country's economic health. GDP calculations in India. Before understanding all the three approaches, we should know the following terms to understand. The basic concepts. Final goods and services produced for final usage by the consumer. Intermediate goods that are used for processing of other goods. They are not included in GDP estimation to solve the problem of double counting. '24. General Studies, Mains, Paper 3. Value added. It is the difference between value of goods as they leave a stage of production to another and the cost of that good as they entered that stage. Methods for calculating GDP in India. The production, output, approach, GVA. The gross value added approach leads to counting the production by sector of activity. Most countries using this approach extrapolate value added with tools such as the Index of Industrial Production IP, physical quantity indicators, or sales type statistics for estimates of value added in manufacturing. GDP total value of sale cost of intermediate goods. The income approach is the total income earned by the factors of production that is owned by a country's citizen. The method of calculating GDP relates to compiling data from employment and earning surveys to estimate salaries and wages by industrial activity. Factor cost equals labor, wages, plus capital, interest, entrepreneurship, profit. Land, rent. GDP, income method, GDP at factor cost taxes subsidies. The expenditure approach. Although the two approaches presented above are still popular, the most widely used approach to measure GDP is expenditure approach. This method suggests simply looking at how much do households, government, nonprofit institutions and financial institutions consume within a country to which one must in the net export of that country, GDP expenditure method, C1 plus G plus XM. Where? C private consumption 1 investment. G government expenditure XM export import, foreign expenditure. GDP at market price, GDP. It refers to the total value of all the goods and services at market price produced during a financial year within the geographical boundaries of the country. Market price refers to the actual transacted price in. It includes indirect taxes such as excise duty, VAT, service tax, customs duty, etc. and government subsidies. That's why the GDP, in, has steadily increased in the last decades. GDP, and direct taxes, subsidies. GDP at factor cost, GDPFC. GDP can be calculated at factor cost. This measure more accurately reveals the income paid to factors of production. The factor cost means the total cost of all factors of production consumed or used in producing a good or service. It includes government grants and subsidies, but it excludes indirect taxes. Real gross domestic product. Real GDP is a better measurement of GDP, since it reflects the increase in quantity of goods and services by adjusting any increase in prices. The value of economic output adjusted for price change, inflation or deflation in real GDP. So, the rate of growth of real GDP has increased and decreased in the last decades. Real GDP is generally measured using base year prices of goods and services. Nominal gross domestic product. Nominal GDP is evaluated at current market prices. Therefore, nominal GDP will include all of the changes in market prices that have occurred during the current year due to inflation or deflation. Net domestic product, NDP. It is the value of GDP calculated after adjusting the value of depreciation. Depreciation means fall in the value of an asset due to natural wear and tear. It is decided by the government. Thus, NDP GDP depreciation. Gross national product, GNP, it is the GDP of an economy adjusted with the income from abroad. This concept takes into account the trans-boundary trade and exchange of the economy with the world. Income from abroad includes the following. Trade balance or the net outcome of the total exports and imports, which might be positive or negative. National income and economic growth. 2525. Interest on external loans, net outcome of the interest payment on loans. Private remittances, net income on account of private transfers by the Indian nationals working abroad and the foreign nationals working in India. The concept of GNP is used by the IMF to rank the nations in terms of the volume at purchasing power. Parity, PPP. Thus, GNP GDP plus XI equals where X income earned and received by Indians working abroad. I equals income earned and received by non-Indians in India. GDP GNP when X equals 0. This mainly happens in a completely closed economy. Net national product, NNP. It is the GNP after deducting the loss due to depreciation. This is the real national income of the economy and represent the purest form of national income data. Thus, NNP equals CNP depreciation. Per capita income, PCI. Per capita income is a more reliable indicator of the standard of living of a country than national income. PCI is calculated by dividing national income by the size of the population. Like national income, it is also calculated at both current and constant prices. India's national income is quite high by any standard. But if this income is distributed among India's vast population, PCI is considerably low indeed. Also, the PCI does not reflect the stark income inequalities in the country. If population increases faster than national income, PCI will fall, in case of which, the standard of living of the people will deteriorate. Thus, for real growth to occur, two things must happen. The price level should not rise faster than the increase in national income, and the growth rate of population per annum must not exceed the annual rate of increase in national income. New changes in estimation of the GDP in India in January 2015. The Central Statistics Office, CSO, started using a new method of measuring economic growth. Advance estimates for 2011 to 15 released in February projected India's GDP during the year to grow at 7.4%, making it the world's fastest growing economy, surpassing China. The changes incorporated under this are: the CSO changed the base year from 2004-2005, 10-2011-2012. The change also switched GDP calculation to using market prices rather than factor costs, to take into account gross value addition in goods and services in line with global practices and on recommendation of United Nations System of National Accounts in 2008. Black Circle. The new GDP incorporates more comprehensive data or corporate activity than the old one. Earlier, data from the Annual Survey of Industries, Upsc, which comprises over 2 lakh factories, was used to gauge activity in the manufacturing sector. Now, the annual accounts of companies, filed with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs MCA 21, will be used. Changes in calculation of labor income in the new series LA, effective labor input, ELI, method is used. Value addition in agriculture is now taken beyond farm produce. Livestock data is integral to new method. (26) Organizations related to national income. National income actually's cumbersome process. It requires compilation, segregation and comparison of data collects on various sectors of the economy at the agrarian level. For this, a separate Ministry of Statistics and Programmante implementation was constituted in 1900. The ministry has a WO wing, one reading to statistics and other with Prograrity Implemere, Lashin. The statistics wing, called the National Statistical Office, NSO, consists of KUNUA, Statistical Office, CSO, the Computer Center and the Nazona Sample Survey Ofra, NSSO. These are Central Statistical Office, C50, the National Around Tamasian, NAD, of CSU is responsible for the preparation at national accounts, which includes cross-domestic product, government and private final consumpor expenditure, fixed capital formation and other macroom aggregates. It brings an annual publication, led nation, account statistics. National Sample Survey Office, NSSO. The NSSO was set up in 1950 to conduct large-scale sample surveys throughout India. Apart from taking surveys through held operation and annual reports, the Data Processing Division of VSSO process and validate all the data which are in turn utilized for estimation of national income besides others. In May 2019, the government decided to merge the ASSO and CSO to form the National Statistical Office, NSO, which will be headed by Ministry of Statistic and Program Implementation. Is GDP a true measure of economic progress? We understand economic growth with the advancement in the standard of living of the country. Countries with higher GDP often score highly on measures of welfare, such as life expectancy. However, there are limitations to the usefulness of GDP as a measure of welfare. General Studies, Mains, Paper 3. Black Circle GDP does not include value of intangibles such as leisure, quality of life, etc. It is only limited to aggregate level of goods and services produced in the country. The negative externalities of economic growth is excluded in the GDP. For instance, the impact of economic growth on the environment may be harmful through pollution and climate change. High economic growth, as reflected in GDP figures, doesn't give indication of stratification present in society. For instance, after 1981, economic reform, India had constant high GDP growth rate, but income inequality has also increased. Since it measures quantitative aspect only, the real reason for growth may be misleading. For instance, it is caused by spending on health or education, or on what? In both of these cases, GDP will show high growth rate. Estimation of national income through GDP also suffers several other bottlenecks, such as non-monetized part of economy, which includes barter exchange, household services and social services are not included. Further, black money generated due to illegal activities and tax evasion are outside the GDP estimates. Economic growth. Economic growth is a quantitative concept. In simple terms, economic growth is the increase in the monetary value of the goods and services produced by an economy over time. A common economic index for measurement of growth of a nation's economy is the gross domestic product, GDP. Growth is a value-neutral term. It might be positive or negative for an economy over a period of time, but generally we use it in positive sense. Increasing growth of an economy signifies well-being of that economy. When the output of economy is increasing but at a decreasing rate over previous quarter, half year per year, then it is referred to as growth rate is slowing down. Output declining over same reference period is referred to as contraction, whereas continuous periods of contraction over 2 quarters is known as recession, and still longer periods of continuous recession is known as depression. National income and economic growth. 127.27. Difference between economic development and economic growth. Economic growth is useful not only in national level economic analysis and policy making, but also highly useful in the study of comparative economics. International financial and commercial institutions go for policy making and future financial planning on the basis of growth rate data available for the economies of world. Increased growth means increased output and increased income for factors of production, which sets off a virtuous cycle of growth in an economy. Hindu growth rate. Professor Raj Krishna, an Indian economist, coined the term Hindu rate of growth in 1978 to characterize the slow growth and to explain it against the backdrop of socialistic economic policies. The Hindu rate of growth is a term referring to the low annual growth rate of the planned economy of India before the liberalizations of 1991, which stagnated around 3.5% from 1950s to 1980s. While per capita income growth of grew 1.2%. Economic development. Economic growth merely refers to a numeric rise in the output of an economy, but economic development is a much broader term which indicates how the output of an economy is distributed among its people. Development also implies equitable distribution in the economy. Earlier, it was believed that increased growth would automatically lead to betterment of lives of people, which is referred to as the trickle-down theory. It means that increase in growth would percolate down to the lowermost stratum of the society. But in case of India, it has not worked due to various reasons. Economic development. Concept. Scope. Rotor and Romative concept. Economic growth. Nemour concept and economic development. Concerned with structural growth is concerned with changes in the OU only. Growth. Development rollers to growth of human capit indices DESI USA inequality figures and structural changes that improve the general calculations quality of implication. Measurement. Implies change income, saying an investment along with progressive changes in socio-economic structure of country institutional and real culprit of goods and services in the country like increase income in savings and investment C. Qualitative. Enhancement in Fleurin Devolument Index, HDI, Gander-Related Index, GH Humani. Poverty Index, HP, Infant Mortality Terrace. Effect. Brings qualitative and quantitative changes in the economy. Heroes in the Koromi 3. Growth relates to a gradual increase in or of the complements of cross-domestic product consumption, government spending investment not. Exports. Trolls to an increase in the quantitative increase in real GOP. Brings can't tat ve chines in the economy. Growth vs development. In some of the underdeveloped countries, the process of growth has been accompanied by development. In the absence of development, the masses are to be guaranteed with a basic minimum level of quality life based upon the entitlement or welfare APMOC. For this, a minimum level of income has to be generated from productive activities by expanding the industries and services sectors. This, while there can be growth without development, development without growth is unconceivable. (28) General Studies, Mains, Paper 3. Sen Bhagwati debate on growth vs development. Scholars have often debated over the issue of primacy of growth and development. Different schools have debated whether growth is the primary factor of development or the other way round. One of the interesting debates on the topic has been the debate between Nobel laureate Amartya Sen and Jagdish Bhagwati. Amartya Sen and Jagdish Bhagwati, two renowned economists, appear to see involved in a debate on economic policy and offering prescriptions for India's governance priorities. Amartya Sen believes that India should rest more in its social infrastructure to boost the productivity of its people and thereby rein growth. He said that without investing in health and education to improve high-end capabilities, inequality will widen in the growth process. It'll will falter. Son's approach has also been referred to as the capability approach. Sen had Yufin what he calls the Kerala experience, where high social spending has resulted in growth, as a role model for other states to follow. Jagdish Bhagwati, on the other hand, argues that only increased growth can yield adequate resources for investing in human welfare. Growth may initially raise inequality, but sustained growth will eventually raise enough resources for the Stato to redistribute and mitigate the effects of the Risha inequality. He endorses the Gujarat model as a metaphor for a primarily growth and private entrepreneurship-driven development, and the Kerala model for a primarily redistribution and state-driven development. Human development disperses the emphasis on the distribution of goods and services that underprivileged people need and center its ideas on human decisions. By investing in people, we enable growth and empower people to pursue many different life paths, thus developing human capabilities. Constituents of human development. There are 6 basic pillars of human development, which are as follows. I. Equity is the idea of fairness for every person. 1. Sustainability is the view that we all have the right to earn a living that can sustain our lives and have access to a more even distribution of goods. In productivity states the efficient participation of people in the process of income generation. This also means that the government needs more efficient social programs for its people. IV. Empowerment is the freedom of the people to influence development and decisions that affect their lives. 7. Cooperation stipulates participation and belonging to communities and groups as a means of mutual enrichment and a source of social meaning. V. Security offers people development opportunities freely and sadly with confidence that they will not disappear suddenly in future. Human development. The first Human Development Report, HDR, published in 1990 by the UNDP, focused on new paradigm of development, which asserts people are the real wealth of the nations. It was developed by Amartya Sen and Mahbub ul Haq and concerns expanding the choices of people to lead lives that they value and improving the human condition. Thus, human development is about much more than economic growth, which is only a means of enlarging people's choices. Fundamental to enlarging these choices is building human capabilities, including political freedoms and human rights. Human Development Index, HDI. HDI is a composite statistic of longevity, knowledge, and standard of living, in corn, indices used to rank countries into 4 tiers of human development, i.e. very high, high, medium, and low. Indicators of HDI. 3 main indicators of HDI are as follows. Life Expectancy Index, LAI, infant mortality is not considered as a separate indicator in this index. Thus, life expectancy refers to life expectancy at birth, not at age 1. Educational Attainment Index, EAJ, it is a combination of adult literacy rate and combined enrollment ratio. The weight assigned to adult literacy rate, ALR, is 2/3, while for combined enrollment ratio, CER, is 1/3.
యాడి పోయినరా నవీన్ గాడు.
National Income and Economic Growth. 29. Standard of Living Index, It is represented here by the concept of purchasing power parity, PPP. Per capita income is converted into purchasing power parity in terms of US dollar. It is also known as GDP index. The value of HDI is scaled on 0 to 1, where 1 represents the best and 0 represents the worst. Human Development Report, 2019. Human Development Report, 2019 entitled Beyond Income, Beyond Averages, Beyond Today Inequalities in Human Development in the 21st Century, was released in December 2019 by the UNDP. HDI values have been rising across all regions and human development groups, but the rates vary significantly. South Asia was the fastest growing region over 1990 to 2018, at 16%, followed by East Asia and the Pacific at 43% and Sub-Saharan Africa at 35%. But HDI growth has also slowed in all regions, particularly in the last decade. Part of the reason lies in the 2008-2009 global, financial and economic crisis. Top 3 countries in the global HDI ranking are Norway, 0.554, Switzerland, 0.946, and Ireland, 0.942, Germany and Hong Kong with HDI values 0.939 are at 4th position, followed by Australia, 0.938, at 5th. The bottom 5 are Burundi, 0.423, South Sudan, 0.413, Chad, 0.401, the Central African Republic, 0.381, and Niger, 0.377. Performance of India. India has jumped 1 place from 130 in 2018 to 129 in 2019 in HDI. Average life expectancy at birth is 69.4 years. Expected years at schooling stands at 12.3 years with a mean of 6.4 years, along with a GNI, gross national income, of US $6.829. India has seen a positive change of 50% in its HDI values since its inception in 1990, from 0.427 to 0.647 in 2019, which put the country in the medium human development category. Between 1990 and 2017, India's HDI value increased from 0.427 to 0.647, an increase of nearly 50%, and an indicator of the country's remarkable achievement in lifting millions of people out of poverty. 2000 to 10 decade saw the highest annual growth rate at 1.64%. Between 1990 and 2019, India's life expectancy at birth too increased by nearly 12 years, with even more significant gains in expected years of schooling. Today's Indian school-age children can expect to stay in school for 47 years longer than in 1990.